Hijacking, that's what for. Good damn!
Do you remember the time when breathless races did not need computer special effects, but only a bright orange Dodge Charger carrying a proud number 01 flying through the Hazzard sky? That was the era when every time the Dixie horn resounded, the Duke brothers performed crazy action stunts defying all laws of physics in the Dukes of Hazzard. And can you believe it, to exchange for those few seconds of eye-satisfying footage, the film crew turned more than 300 muscle treasures worth a fortune into scrap metal without mercy. What an artistic way of burning money. And few people know that the miserable Uncle Jesse was actually a notorious oil tycoon, or the romantic Beau Duke had to set up an entire classic deception play just to get his hands on the steering wheel. Do not take your eyes off the screen, because right following here, we will peel away all 10 shocking secrets that the legendary movie The Dukes of Hazzard has hidden for over 40 years. 1. The massacre of over $70 million and the horrific death sentences behind the lens. General Lee, the proud symbol of the Dukes of Hazzard, was actually a death row inmate with no tomorrow. Behind the brilliant aura of the orange 1969 Dodge Charger was a true muscle car slaughter where legendary machines were squeezed until their last breath. Throughout 7 seasons, an economic and cultural tragedy took place. More than 300 classic treasures were mercilessly crushed. At the present time, each original car is valued at up to $300,000, meaning the film crew threw an entire huge fortune into death-defying jumps over broken bridges, crazy takeoffs from dirt embankments, or violent crashes through wooden fences. Imagine the value of this army of victims is enough to buy out a fleet of shiny Ferrari supercars or an entire luxury residential area, but all were turned into distorted scrap metal in the blink of an eye. Do not mistake those for safe cinematic special effects. In reality, each action stunt was a brutal death sentence for these war horses. Under the horrific pressure from collisions, steel chassis were bent and warped. Suspension systems shattered and wheel axles deformed to the point of being unrecognizable. Icons of speed that were majestically burning just a minute before, a minute later, lay still and cold in the scrapyard like soulless corpses. The crew's thirst for cars reached its peak when the Charger supply gradually ran out. They became frantic hunters, ready to hunt down and stick purchase offers on any car they happened to encounter on the street. They even dragged rusted car carcasses from death, patched them up sloppily just to throw them into a single suicidal scene, then abandoned them amidst the ruins. Looking back at the past, it is hard to believe that they burned over $70 million of historical value just to capture a few seconds of eye-catching footage on screen. However, that material destruction was still nothing compared to even darker corners. Because behind those piles of scrap metal, there were prices many times more expensive. Prices paid with actual human blood and bone. 2. Blood falls on the film set, when the death sentence is not only for soulless machines.
Oh, look out!
In August 1980, an atmosphere of mourning and coldness covered the entire set of The Dukes of Hazzard. This time, the silence did not come from the director's order, but from a horrific tragedy that permanently took a human life amidst the wreckage. Rodney Mitchell, the ill-fated camera assistant, collapsed when an equipment truck lost control, overturned, and crushed everyone's hopes. No one could react in time, no miracle happened, leaving only extreme shock as human flesh was pinned under cold, heavy steel. That was not a stage scene, nor were there any special effects that could erase that brutal truth. The incident was so terrifying that it made even the bravest stuntmen tremble and refuse to continue. Many staff members immediately left the scene because they could not bear the massive psychological pressure. According to witnesses present, the film's set at that time was thick with fear. Everyone was frozen before the fragile boundary between a normal working day and a grim funeral. Before this tragedy occurred, the Dukes of Hazzard was already notorious as a true life-and-death gamble. At that time, the concept of CGI, or simulation models, was a luxury. Everything you saw was real cars, real speed, and extreme danger. Every road-burning drift, every jump over a broken bridge, or direct crash into a fence was performed with flesh and blood. When hundreds of Dodge Chargers were crushed like toys, just a small mistake measured in centimeters could cause the car to flip over and become an iron coffin imprisoning the driver between the lines of life and death. The death of Rodney Mitchell was like a bucket of cold water thrown directly at the arrogance of the film crew, forcing them to tighten all safety procedures and bitterness. It was a ruthless warning that eye-catching footage is sometimes exchanged for actual blood and tears. However, material destruction and human pain were still not all of the most peculiar hidden corners. Because right after this, we will come to a mysterious character, one with an appearance that deceived the whole world, looking like one thing but being another. 3. The poor farmer in the movie turned out to be a notorious oil tycoon in real life.
I wonder where that dang Bo and Luke are.
Oh, Uncle Jesse, they're gonna be here. You know how they are.
Sure, I know how they are. That's why I'm worried.
If only looking at the screen, anyone would be deceived by Denver Pyle's appearance as Uncle Jesse, a miserable farmer uncle with a frayed shirt living a simple life by the field and a rickety pickup truck. That rustic, industrious farmer image was so authentic that millions of viewers mistakenly believed that in real life, he was also just an actor struggling to make a living. But the truth behind the velvet curtain was an unimaginable shock. Denver Pyle was actually a prominent shark in the oil empire. Outside the spotlight, Denver Pyle did not care about the meager acting fees at all. He possessed a ruthless and brave investment brain when executing corpse-buying deals of abandoned oil wells at dirt-cheap prices, only about $2 a barrel. With the patience of a great hunter, he waited until the 1973 oil crisis erupted. When the world wavered, his dead oil wells suddenly came back to life, gushing streams of black gold, bringing in huge profits that made even the most experienced Texas billionaires tip their hats in admiration. The most staggering thing was the ultimate contrast. While in the movie, Uncle Jesse had to pinch every penny in real-life income from acting, was only a tool for Pyle to rotate capital for his secret major oil and gas projects. Although extremely wealthy, he used that fortune to perform noble gestures, turning the kind uncle image into reality through multi-million-dollar charities for children. The truth about Denver Pyle is one of the craziest paradoxes in television history. The one who appeared the poorest and humblest in the movie was actually the person holding the most horrific power and wealth when shedding the makeup. However, if you think Uncle Jesse's life was already a paradox, then prepare your spirit to face the true face of Boss Hogg, the one who will make you completely change your prejudice about the so-called villain. 4. Sorrel Book Boss Hogg was an academic and intelligence genius.
Roscoe. What? Don't tell me you're siding with them Dukes. Yeah.
On-screen Sorrel Book is Boss Hogg, the corrupt politician, big belly, bright white suit, both funny and irritating to viewers. But in real life, this person had a resume that stunned anyone who heard it. Book was high school valedictorian, entered Columbia University at 16, then earned a master's degree at Yale, two of the most elite schools in America. Afterward, he joined the military and became an intelligence officer in the Korean War, a job requiring cunning sharpness and extraordinary memory. He mastered 6 languages: English, French, Japanese, Spanish, Russian, Italian, and could read many others like Arabic, Mandarin, Swedish, more than a professional diplomat. Yet when he played Boss Hogg, Sorrel Book completely erased his intellectual image. He wore a padded suit extending his waist up to 1.5 meters, spoke in a drawn-out voice imitating Southern senators, turning Boss Hogg into one of the most ridiculous but memorable characters on American television. He even studied gestures, eye movements, and how to eat fried chicken in a way both funny and authentically Southern. When the Dukes of Hazzard ended, Book did not disappear from entertainment. He became a famous voice actor, voicing numerous cartoons and video games, and could even conduct a symphony orchestra, something few in Hollywood could do. And if Boss Hogg was cunning on screen, General Lee in real life also had a mechanical secret, enough to leave you speechless. 5. General Lee had to be weighted with cement to jump.
Look!
On screen, General Lee raced like an orange rocket, jumping over broken bridges, deep rivers, or warehouse roofs, then landed perfectly as if it were normal. But the truth behind it was far from perfect. The 1969 Dodge Charger carried a death sentence in design. The front was extremely heavy. This meant that whenever it left the ground, it almost certainly nosedived, pointing straight down like a giant bullet and crushing itself in screeching steel. Stunt drivers and the mechanical team had to do something no one had ever thought of: stuff sandbags, steel boxes, even blocks of cement into the trunk. Not to block bullets, but to make the rear heavier, forcing the car to lift its nose in the air and land on the rear wheels first. It sounds like a clever engineering trick, but in reality, it was a deadly gamble. Because even with that cement armor, many shots still ended in chaos, landing off balance, spinning mid-air, or hitting the ground hard enough to twist the chassis like a tin can. Every time the camera shouted action, the crew knew well that General Lee might never drive again. Yet they kept doing it over and over, because General Lee's jumps were the soul of the show, the moments that thrilled the audience, and also killed hundreds of priceless classic Chargers. And that is not even the full truth hidden behind the scenes. 6. Contract battles caused the 2 main actors to leave the show. In 1982, the Dukes of Hazzard was at the height of fame. Ratings peaked. Merchandise, from General Lee models, posters, t-shirts, to bedding sets, sold like wildfire, earning over $190 million in 1981 alone. But amid that glory, 2 stars John Schneider Bo Duke and Tom Wopat Luke, Duke discovered a bitter truth: they hardly received a fair share from that mountain of money. Both demanded CBS share the profits fairly. The network's cold refusal sparked a war. Schneider and Wopat left the set just before season 5 began filming, leaving a huge gap in the cast. In panic, the producers released a patch solution introducing 2 new characters, Cousins Coy and Vance Duke. But viewers were not easily fooled. Ratings plummeted. Fans sent complaint letters, even boycotted the show. Newspapers at the time called it the biggest casting disaster of 1980s television. After only 19 episodes, CBS had to back down re-sign contracts and bring Schneider and Wopat back. Episodes with Coy and Vance were treated as non-existent, not referenced, not remembered, as if it was a nightmare both the network and viewers wanted to bury. But the story about money and rights did not stop there, because behind it was an even more intense merchandise rights drama. 7. The Confederate flag on the car roof causes great controversy. On the roof of the General Lee, the iconic car of the Dukes of Hazzard, is a detail that is both the most prominent and the most dangerous, a giant Confederate flag. In the 70s and 80s, it was seen as a proud mark of the South, a symbol of indomitable spirit and resistance against oppressive power. Audiences at that time saw the flag and immediately remembered Bo and Luke Duke, daredevils who challenged every rule. But more than 30 years later, its meaning has been completely overturned. Stepping into the 2000s, the Confederate flag was viewed as a symbol of racism, political extremism, and far-right movements. Something that was once the memory material of millions of fans suddenly became a political bomb. And the General Lee, originally a pop culture pride, was now placed on the public's operating table where every look and every discussion carried the smell of gunpowder. In 2015, Warner Brothers released a decision that shocked the entire fan community, permanently terminating all merchandise products featuring this flag. Immediately after, several major television channels simultaneously stopped rebroadcasting the film. A mass of fans were outraged, dividing into two fierce battle lines. One side seeing this as a necessary action to abolish a symbol of discrimination, the other side considering it a direct stab into the heritage they love. John Schneider, Bo Duke, could not hide his resentment. When I was a kid, it symbolized fighting the system, not discrimination. Labeling the show as discriminatory just because of the flag makes my heart ache. And this was still not the biggest crack in the image of the film. Behind the scenes, there still existed secrets that would make even the most loyal fans stunned. 8. Merchandise copyright drama worth tens of millions of US dollars. Imagine you are the main actor in a hit television series. Your face, your name, even your posture is printed on everything. From car models, lunchboxes, t-shirts, to bright orange bedsheet sets. Millions of products are sold, money flows back to the network like a waterfall. But your account almost does not move. The actors of the Dukes of Hazzard had to experience exactly that. The movie was a money-printing machine thanks to a huge amount of merchandise. General Lee models, lunchboxes, toys, clothing posters, anything that could print the logo or the image of this legendary car became merchandise. But their original contracts almost did not allow them to receive a significant percentage of this revenue. According to the accounts of some crew members, some only knew the true value of the merchandise when they accidentally saw an internal revenue report that leaked out. From there, dissatisfaction simmered and accumulated through each filming season. Many people began to feel discouraged, talked about leaving the film, and even discussed finding lawyers to sue for their rights. The atmosphere behind the scenes shifted from cheerful to as tense as a guitar string. By the time everything exploded, it became a major strike, causing John Schneider and Tom Wopat to leave the set, a situation directly linked to the contract war in the previous fact. If the money matter was a simmering battle behind the scenes, then in real life the film also faced another extremely violent bomb. 9. General Lee receives more fan mail than the entire cast. While Bo, Luke, or Daisy received thousands of letters each month, the General Lee outdid them all. At the peak, the amount of fan mail sent to the Dukes of Hazzard reached 60,000 letters per month, and more than half of those were sent to a car. Children wrote letters asking for technical specifications, drawings, and photos from every angle. Adults asked to buy the car offering to trade with rare collectibles. There were even strange letters where the writers confided in the General Lee as if it were a friend, a hero, or even a soulmate who knew how to listen. To Warner Brothers, the General Lee had gone far beyond the concept of a prop. It was the superstar of the movie, a true money-printing machine, both pulling in ratings and pushing merchandise sales to a huge level. Every photo, every model, every souvenir item printed with the image of the General Lee was sold out in record time. Ironically, in a movie full of charismatic characters, the one who captured the audience's heart was not a human, but an orange block of steel with the number 01 printed large on the door and a horn that sounded the Dixie melody every time it jumped across the Hazzard sky. But everything was formed from one lie. 10. John Schneider lied to get the role of Bo Duke. That year, John Schneider was only 18 years old, coming from Mount Kisco, New York, far from the South in both geography and culture. In the eyes of the producers, he completely lacked the Southern quality to transform into Bo Duke, the cowboy guy driving the General Lee as if born to live on red dirt roads. But instead of accepting defeat, Schneider decided to create a new person himself. He built up an entire fake character to go to the audition self-declaring he was 24 years old, driving a rickety old pickup truck straight into the studio gate, leaving stubble for a few days, wearing a faded cowboy hat, a crumpled shirt, and most importantly, speaking with a thick Southern accent as if he had lived in Georgia his whole life. When asked about his hometown, he replied without hesitation, Snailville, Georgia, a town that did not exist at all. Schneider maintained this role from the moment he stepped onto the studio grounds until he left, not revealing a single gap. The result? He completely convinced the producers and won the role of Bo Duke immediately, even though at that time he had never touched the steering wheel of a General Lee. In fact, Schneider knew nothing about stunt driving. After receiving the role, he had to plunge into an intensive training course, learning to drift close to the edge, flying the car over obstacles, and performing the move of climbing through the car window. A move that seemed easy, but could sprain a shoulder if done at the wrong angle. Once he almost tumbled out of the General Lee while the car was running just because his foot got caught in the steering wheel. All these risks and tricks not only turned Schneider into Bo Duke on screen, but also turned his casting story into one of the most daring and boldest legends in American television history. The Dukes of Hazzard was not just a TV series. It was a part of American pop culture. From the Dixie horn every time General Lee flew across the screen to breathless chases, the show gave audiences worldwide excitement, humor, and unforgettable characters. But behind the stage lights and laughter, as we have just seen, was a treasure trove of shocking stories, Dodge Chargers worth a fortune destroyed mercilessly, real accidents causing deaths, tens of millions, US dollars, contract and copyright disputes, unexpected personal secrets of the cast, and a visual icon capable of controversy for decades. That is why The Dukes of Hazzard is still mentioned after more than 40 years. Not only for the entertainment it brought, but also because the behind-the-scenes stories could leave even loyal fans speechless. This show was the perfect combination of action humor, character personality, and a bit of dangerous recklessness, which made it an irreplaceable legend. If you find these secrets interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, so we have the motivation to continue digging, discovering untold stories about other legendary films. Who knows? Maybe your favorite movie is also hiding truths you would not believe.